All right, back, right, and this is, we're in 33. 33 has been broken up into an A, B, C, D, 4 pieces, 4 pages of questions, just on one thing, the Lao Tzu said, or one little paragraph, one of his 80 wisdoms. Okay, so 33A was about understanding yourself and other people, and that takes a lot of work. 33B, it requires more strength to master one's own will than to control someone else's. Hey, the Daily Taoist here, Buddha Zhen Shen-Lang, reading from the Tao of Taoism. And yes, I'm on 33B of the 40 ones we're going to read here, about 40 of them in this book I wrote, Tao of Taoism. And 33 is talking about, obviously, it requires more strength to master one's own will than to control someone else's. I can give a great example of that. When I come out here sometimes at night and I want a late night snack and I have to use my will, self-discipline to not do it. And I've been fair and good. For a while I wasn't. I was like at only 25% success. Now I'm at a 75% success. And the 25% I sometimes isn't even a mistake. I'll just realize, well, if I'm going to eat now, I'm going to stay up for another hour or two. I'm not going to go right to bed. So I kind of rationalize it slightly, which has actually worked out really good. So I've gotten some really good late night work done lately. So that snack, I think, really empowered me as opposed to being really hungry and tired. So anyway, once again, I'm rationalizing. But being able to control myself and stop myself from that is harder than it would be for me to just say, you're not allowed to do that, and send my kid back to bed. So it's easier to enforce someone else, control someone else, than actually control yourself. And that to me is a good example of it. Okay. So let's see. In fact, it says right now, explain this. That's the first one, and I just explained it. So that's my explanation of it. But you explain it. It requires more strength to master one's own will than to control someone else's. Now, you put it in your context. You talk about something that's difficult for you to do and how it'd be easier to do it to someone else. Okay? How do you control other people and why? How do you control other people and why? That's an interesting question because there are so many infinite answers. But maybe you control them as a business manager. Well, why are you controlling them? Because somebody told you. But why did you actually choose that job to be? Keep asking the whys. Keep asking, well, why did you do that? Well, why did you become the manager? Well, why did you go to school to become a manager? Why did you know that going to school to be a manager was a good idea? See, keep those whys going. Okay, I used to get in trouble when I was a kid because the common man, hates the why because it makes you have to think. So come on, warm up that engine and start moving it. Get the whys going. Why? It's an engine. Okay, how could you get just as much or more by controlling less? How could you get just as much or more by controlling less? Now, this is something I wish I'd mastered better as a parent. I was so busy doing so many things that if I could have just been a full-time parent without trying to run a kung fu school, write my books, record albums, and even have a wife and a relationship. But I could have taken several of those things out of the mix. I could have done a little better at controlling my life. But, okay. How do you control other people and why? How could you get just as much by controlling less? Now, that's what I was getting at is with my kids. Is that sometimes it's just easier to, of course, control, by saying, don't do that. Or better, but control for me was not really just trying to draw limits. I was trying to always train my kids to do things and teach them more. And so that's what I was really trying to get at when I saw that controlling less. I kept such an eye and I was so much there, as the teacher. I really should have given my kids as students, more of their own time to explore the lessons. That's why people I did to an extent that drove people nuts. I'd send my daughter off to the canyon by herself and say, oh, you can go hike, just come back in 2 hours, and I'd be nervous 2 hours, but still. I gave her adventure time. You have to let them out of your control to a certain extent so they can develop certain abilities. And I wish I'd done it more. I actually wish that I had almost less control over my kids because I was there so much, all day long, 24/7, raising my kids. So it would have been nice if I was there less. Even being the grave father, remember, they never saw me as the father. I was always the daycare worker. And Shifu. That was the only time I could be father. In fact, my daughter, I remember, anyway, here we go. How could you get as much by controlling less? If you set all those who you control free, which would return and why? So back to my kids. If I set my kids free, why would they return? Well, they wouldn't return for the music. They wouldn't return for the Kung Fu. They wouldn't return to be creative writers. They wouldn't return because they wanted to help me with my television shows or be actors or even in production because I had them on the cameras at the cable TV show and they would be shooting cameras and helping out and stuff too. So they had opportunities to see if they had attitudes or acumen for any of these things. So they wouldn't come back to me for that. They wouldn't come back to me for the singing and the music. I said that maybe already. So the only reason my kids would ever come back to me is for food and shelter. And so that's why we had a great relationship for 15 years, is because I supplied them that food and shelter. But the moment I didn't supply them food and shelter anymore, I never saw them again. Okay, how do you control your subconscious mind? Well, I told you, I have a relationship with mine. I have a friendship. It's like, what do you want to do? Okay, how about you? Are you aware of your subconscious mind? Are you aware of that when you watch a scary movie, it's your subconscious mind watching it, and then you get scared, and your conscious mind goes, oh, it's just a movie. You know, that's kind of one of the separations of the subconscious and the conscious. The subconscious believes everything. My subconscious, because like I said, I'm so empowered, I'm very, very gullible, you know. And I like to think that I'm always in an environment where I can trust information. And certain people have said things to me over the years that were wrong, and it just poisoned my mind because I'm gullible and I believed it. And, you know, I honestly believed their BS. I think some of them even said some BS that they thought was so BS they didn't think I believe it, but I'm so gullible I believed it. And then I find out later it's not true. And it kind of harmed a few things perspectives I had in the meantime. So yeah, it doesn't, even smart people are gullible. You know, we believe stuff, it's just my subconscious. So where are we at now? 6 minutes, okay. Well, how could you get just as much by controlling less? If you set them free, how do you control? What happens without these controls if you don't control your subconscious mind? Well, like I said, I'm learning a lot since I wrote this book. Maybe 60–80% of the people in this world don't control their subconscious mind. I don't know. This is something I don't really know. So I'm not going to tell you what's going on there. I just know that when I get students, you know, I get them to have a nice relationship because your subconscious mind is required to be a Kung Fu master. You cannot do Kung Fu without your subconscious being a part of it. And so that relationship between your subconscious and your conscious gets really powerful if you continue with the Kung Fu because they're both empowered and they both become very powerful and they realize what they can do with exercise, practice, focus, learning, information. So the subconscious and the conscious just, and when you become a Kung Fu master, it's like you get kind of, well, you go through cocky period, like that motorcycle. Okay, where were we? How do you control your conscious mind? So your conscious mind. See, now that's a problem. I know somebody who's got I would call it a severe mental problem because his relationship with his subconscious mind and his conscious mind is horrible. His subconscious mind rules the show. So people think he's retarded because he talks like a child. And he says really childish baby things. But that's because he lets his subconscious talk. Now his subconscious is supposed to tell the conscious mind what to say. Or the subconscious mind is supposed to actually know what you want. Well, I know you feel that way, but let's say this. The conscious mind is always supposed to communicate. You never let the subconscious mind communicate directly with other people, but this guy does. And that's what makes him seem like he's retarded. And this thing comes out and starts saying really stupid, childish things. You know, then you got to talk like he's a child. And so anyway, and that's a weird case, but that really illuminated to me. I'd never seen that so dramatically, or at least been aware of it so dramatically until recently. So anyway, explain your self-motivation. Explain your self-motivation. Let's leave it at that, and that's a very important question. That's a very important answer. So you put that down and don't say anything you're supposed to or anything rehearsed or memorized. Explain your self-motivation. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, how do you motivate yourself when you don't want to do something? I think I gave an example of that a minute ago. But yes, when you don't want to do something, how do you motivate yourself? We all have to trick ourselves, talk ourselves into it, or what. I've got all kinds of, actually, things that I do. What do you do? Okay, what's in your subconscious? Okay, Buddha Zhen Shen-Lang, then we're breaking down number 33. That's a tough one. That's talking about mastering your own will and controlling other people. The first part was understanding yourself and understanding other people. The third part is going to be about self-contentment and opinions and, well, this is going to be interesting. So this is going to bring it all in. It looks like it's going to add chaos to it. All right, anyway, getting out of here. The Daily Taoist, Buddha Zhen here, reading from the Tao of Taoism. That was 33B. of what I'm saying is the Tao Te Ching written by Lao Tzu, my interpretation.